Welcome to Brevard News, your home for real news in Brevard County. My name is Kevin Jeffrey, your moderator, and I am joined today by the Commish, Katie Delaney in District 1. Also with Stale Bailey, our investigative reporter. Welcome, one and all. And our quote of the week comes from Glenda Carlin Buswick from Brevard Good Old Boys. And if you don't have that book, you need to get it for your nightly reading. It'll tell you a lot about what's going on in Brevard County. And this is what she writes in the book. Politicians depend upon people forgetting. They know that they can erase many past memories and enough bad deals and dirty tricks and increasing taxes with enough campaign money, ads, posters, bumper stickers, and smiling TV appearances at the election time. And she goes on to say, it is my wish that you don't forget. And that's our quote of the week. So still there's a lot going on in Titusville, and let's look at the first thing that we have, Larese. We're not hearing anything about his replacement, any search or anything going on. What do we know about the search for the replacement of the city manager?
We've heard that he's retired, but we haven't gotten any further information on the next steps, the process.
Well, except for that one, there was the, and I guess it's a rumor that they were wanting Lau to actually be the acting city manager, which is laughable. But that was out there, right?
Yes, that was out there, and the possibility of Abate's brother, who is currently the assistant manager, possibly. But a lot of the citizens that we've spoken to throughout the city are very tuned in to this, and they want to ensure that the new city manager isn't already entangled in the current government. So they're expressing just how important it is that they're a part of the process.
So there was some question also as to whether the city would use the same firm that they used to hire Larese, and there was some question as to, no, we don't want to do that, right?
Right. The citizens that we've spoken to said they want an outside agency, and they don't want the same agency to be picking their new city manager.
Now, do we know, is this unusual that the city hasn't said anything about this? I mean, Larese, the clock is ticking. I think he only has 30 to 40 days now. What is going on?
That's a good question, and we'll need more information on that. I'm hoping that more comes out at the upcoming city council meeting, and that, you know, they use, whether it's their report, because I didn't see anything on their city council agenda, to speak more on that and what people should expect moving forward.
Okay, the next thing is that our police leadership poll, which was run on the Brevard News Facebook page, and we ran a poll last week, and we cut it off last Monday, I think it was, and this was the question: do you have confidence in the Titusville Police Department leadership? Now, here's the results of it, and we did post it on our Facebook page. 57% said they have no confidence in the Titusville Police leadership. 10% said that they were concerned, and 30% said that they had 100% confidence in the Titusville police leadership. What did you make of that poll?
I think that there's eroded trust in the city right now, and I think there's just, in order to build that trust, it's going to take time, and it's going to take actually listening to the citizens and working alongside the citizens, and we haven't seen that for decades. I mean, we've got decades worth of issues here that are compiled up, and I think that people have spoken. We tried to share this poll out widely so that way everyone could take this poll. And so
you think some people were reluctant to take it because of, I mean, there's been a lot of pushback around the city with Lau and his people that he are friends with and whatnot. Do you think some people were reluctant to actually participate?
I would think so. I think that there's a lot of people that are reluctant to participate in anything publicly when it comes to the local government because they're scared of their government, which that's not how it should be.
It ought not to be that way, ever. It should ever be that way. And that shows that this thing has been reversed, and the people are, as we continue to remind you, it's the people who have the power according to the Constitution. Now we come to the curious case of Stuart Buchanan. And it's a curious case because you ask yourself the question, where did this guy come from? And there's a lot of questions raised about him. So this guy, and tell me if I'm wrong, what we know about him is that he is actually applying for various boards in Titusville, right?
Right.
He has a record as a felon. But ironically, when you look him up, he has a protected voter status, which is odd because a protected voter status is only given to people who are like judges or people or police officers or things of that nature. Where did this guy come from and what's going on here?
That's a good question. And there is a list. It's a very strict list to be able to become a protected voter. And so I do want to start off with somewhat of what we've found in our research regarding him. He started in Palm Bay. He was hired as Palm Bay's Director of Growth Management in 2015. But during that time, he was enraveled in this controversy where there were allegations that surfaced that he violated city regulations and filed false complaints against the mayor at the time. The Palm Bay City.
Now, this was before his conviction.
No, this was after his conviction was back in the 1980s.
So this was after his conviction.
Yes, and I have
How
that.
did he get that job?
I don't know. I look at his history with that, and I have that information as well with his conviction. In his youth, as a teenager serving in the Army at Fort Benning, Georgia, he was arrested for selling stolen military equipment, including machine gun parts, radios, and weapons training devices.
That's serious business. This guy is out. How long ago was that?
That was like in the early 1980s, and then in 2015, he becomes this director in Palm Bay. And then moving forward, he's accused of involvement in extortion plot, housing grant fraud, and theft from the Space Coast Paratroopers, which is a nonprofit organization.
A couple of city council meetings ago, he writes a letter to a Titusville resident, thumbing his nose up at her, basically. And then he raised a question in the letter, we all know this because she read it at the Titusville City Council meeting, saying that there were people that were with him who were trying to distract from others that they wanted to get on these boards. And the resident raised the question as to who is the we that he's referring to. So is he in cahoots with someone in Titusville? I mean, are there people on the city council? And so when she asked that question, the people on the city council, particularly Connors, was like kind of stunned.
Mm-hmm. And he was laughing. He was laughing as she brought forward her concerns on the record. I can't even imagine why somebody would send a letter basically saying, I'm watching you and I know where you live and I've even looked into your sister.
And no one sees this as a concern.
None of the city council addressed it at all.
And then another thing is he has a PAC called Brevard First PAC. And again, what's curious about this is that you've had Robert Jordan donated to that PAC, and also Senator Tom Wright donated to this PAC. What's going on here?
Yeah, and when he first opened that PAC, it was during the 2024 elections. And the PAC created a Facebook page and they launched attacks against Andrew Connors' opponent. So they basically helped Andrew Connors get into office and helped him through his election. When that PAC was initially opened, there is a guy named Jared Mangold that was also on there as a chair. He since has been removed.
Now, why was he removed?
I don't know. I would have to get further information on that. We could try to contact Jared directly. But he was removed according to the documents, and it's only Stuart Buchanan who is listed on the paperwork. But Jared is found in the North Brevard Economic Development Zone meetings with Andrew Connors. So there's connections going on here.
So then the same guy, Buchanan, has been noticed going through or exiting doors at City Hall that not everyone has access to, and some have gone to calling it the magic door.
Yes, it has been deemed the magic door.
Can anybody go through that door, or is that just limited access? Because the door is actually behind where the lawyer, the city attorney, and the city manager sits. I would suppose if the average citizen went and tried to go through that door, they wouldn't be allowed access. I wouldn't imagine, right?
I wouldn't imagine either. That door has only been accessed by city officials, police officers, and officials of the city, workers. you never see everyday ordinary citizens walking through that door.
Except for Stuart
for Stuart.
Buchanan. So we're going to keep up with this and try to find out who this Stewie guy is and what's going on here. There's just a lot of questions about it. The next thing is you have information about, and I'll call him Chick-fil-A Connors, because he made the boast before the election, the mayoral election, that he was bringing a Chick-fil-A to town. You checked with Chick-fil-A and
Yes.
found out that that was not true.
Yes, I did. I've been in contact with Chick-fil-A, different public relations, and their corporation. And in an email, I asked them for a written statement so that way I could get it written. Because
So you sent the information
Yes.
with the billboard of Connors, right, in his advertisement, and you asked them point blank, is this guy related to you? Do you know about this guy? Is he getting a Chick-fil-A? And their answer was?
Their answer was, we have no locations on the radar for the Brevard, Titusville area, and we have no new location to confirm at this time.
And they went further on to say that when you look at the qualifications that they had, he wouldn't qualify, presumably, because one of them is what?
The first one was, in order to get a franchise in your city, you need to have $10,000 in non-gifted, non-borrowed funds for the initial franchise fee. And then
and maybe he could pass that. We don't know his
Right.
financial situation, but presumably based upon what he said during the election, he didn't have much money, but so we don't know.
We don't know. And then another one is full-time, hands-on, day-to-day ownership and operation of the restaurant business.
Which being mayor would have prevented him from doing that.
Yes, it would be very difficult for him to put his full attention into a franchise. So there's just been a lot of questions circulating this, and now people have really gravitated towards this, because he even used, and I have sent, I'm in communication since December with Chick-fil-A, and I've showed them how he used their logo, even in printout flyers that he sent. We got tons of pictures that were sent to us where he's put it on his campaign flyers and online.
Now, he didn't use the eat more chicken, did he?
No.
He didn't do that. But, it's really interesting that he did that, and you wonder, was he just pandering? There's a big issue in Titusville. Everybody wants a Chick-fil-A, but based upon what we've researched and you found out, it doesn't seem like Titusville really is in line for a Chick-fil-A anytime soon, just because of the demographics. Would that be accurate to say?
I would say that's accurate according to Chick-fil-A themselves.
All right. Thanks, Dale. And so there's a special election coming up on, of all days, April 1st, April Fool's Day. And hopefully this actually will be April Fool's on Debbie Mayfield. So there's a election in seat 32 to replace Debbie Mayfield. And then in seat 19, there's an election for the state Senate to hopefully prevent Debbie Mayfield from being elected. And so these are two crucial elections coming up, and probably whoever wins the primary is going to win the general election. Would you say in this situation?
Historically, Brevard is, more of a red county, so, you would think that whoever wins the Republican primary most likely will follow through to the end, but we'll see.
So Debbie Mayfield left this seat that she won this seat back in November, right? And then she decided to leave this seat. Now, the Supreme Court granted her an exemption against the she had been in the House for 8 years, and then the state Senate for another 8 years, and they gave her an exemption actually to run because of a technicality right in the law that went against term limits. And so she's able to run again for the state Senate. First of all, you want to ask yourself, why is she doing this? I mean, is she really concerned about the people? Some of the things that she's voted for, like the Live Local Act, just a horrible bill. Horrible. It's going to kill the citizens of this county. Show me where I'm wrong.
Honestly, I feel like, the citizens, they voted for term limits. They want term limits in Brevard County in Florida. And so if it was me, I would not be doing that. But
why do you do this? I mean, do you think that you're invaluable, that there's not other people that can run? I mean, what? So she leaves this seat, and this seat is open, and you have Bob White, who is over the Republican Leadership Caucus. He's going to run for this seat. And Who else is running?
There's Bob White. He is the chairman, I believe, of the Republican Liberty Caucus. And then there's Brian Hodgers, who he's a local insurance agent. And then there's Dr. Terrence Cronin Jr., and he is a local dermatologist.
So who's the favorite, shall I say, in this? I mean, as far as you're concerned.
So there has been a lot of elected officials who have come out for Bob White and for Dr. Terrence Cronin. So it'll be really interesting. From what I've seen of them, they're great people. So we'll see how it turns out. And both of them are very conservative people. So that, in my book, is a good thing. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. I know that Bob White has been endorsed by Ron Paul and Byron Donalds, and Dr. Terrence Cronin has been endorsed by Randy Fine and Congressman Herodopoulos.
So this is going to be an interesting race.
It will.
So then you get to seat 19, which is a Senate race seat, and this is an interesting race. You have 4 people that are in this election. Now, the first one was to replace Debbie Mayfield. I label this one to prevent Debbie Mayfield. That's just my own personal opinion here. In seat 19 for the Senate, let's not elect Debbie Mayfield. We do have other people, and one of the guys that we've talked to, Mark Leitner, who is 24 years old, he's running for this seat, and he's an impressive young man, and we've talked to him. And who else is running with him?
So like you said, there's Mark Leitner, and then there's former Melbourne City Council Tim Thomas. He was a colonel, I believe, in the military. And then we have Marcy Adkins, who she ran against Randy Fine years ago for the state house and didn't prevail. And then again, she ran for state committee woman for the Republican Party in 2024 and didn't prevail. So
that's going to be an interesting race, and you would say because of the time frame that Debbie Mayfield has an advantage, but also there's a disadvantage in that she has a record to run on, and if people understood her record, it's going to be tough for her, isn't it?
Well, so special elections are always very interesting because the turnout is extremely low, and really this is anybody's game.
Now, Mark Leitner is 24 years old, and so we did the math and we looked it up, and there's 295 people in the history of this country that have been elected at the age of 24 to the state legislatures. And I think the youngest one in Florida was elected a few years ago. I think it was like 2021 or something at the age of 21. So it has been done before. You've met him. What do you think about him?
He's definitely a young professional. He's married, has a child and a baby on the way, and he works for a heavy equipment company. And so it's, I think it's great to have young people in politics. Because
get some new blood in.
Exactly, new energy. People can say that
same.
Young politicians are inexperienced and whatnot, but there are plenty of extremely experienced people in the state legislature and in the state Senate. And so it would be great to just bring some new energy in.
Well, and people say that, but the founders of our Constitution were all young men. They were 20 years old. So,
right.
I mean, that's really, probably that's a good thing. I mean, you bring in some more energy, some more insight, and hopefully we'll see what happens in this situation. I pray, and so this is just me personally, I pray that Debbie Mayfield is done. We do not need her in office anymore. But we'll see what you, the voters, say. And that special election is coming up on April 1st, and interesting that it's on April 1st. Hopefully it will turn out that way, and that this guy will actually fool everybody and will have somebody outside of Debbie Mayfield in office. And so now, welcome to our Commish Report, and we have a lot on the docket. A lot happened this week, and so you had the budget workshop, and how did that go?
That went really well. We had our constitutional officers give a short presentation about what their budget's going to look like. Unfortunately, they don't have all of the information that they need to give us a completely clear picture yet of full-on budget, but we should be getting that closer probably around March, April timeframe. And then we had our budget department give a short presentation, and then our public works department gave an extremely comprehensive presentation. And I urge everybody, it's a little long and a little
But it left no doubt.
extensive, but there's so much good information in that public works presentation, and we're not even done with it. He's going to have to continue at the next one. And it's, I would say, the most comprehensive presentation that I have seen from the county.
So what's the difference in his presentation versus others?
Well, it just is a lot more information, a lot more specific. There are, he specifically, down to the micro level, puts out there all of the needs of the department, the needs of the community, different options for the commission to possibly look into, to funding some of these needs. It was, I have to give a shout out to Mark Bernath. I mean, he is, that presentation was just excellent work. And, you know, if you want to get more informed about what's going on with our infrastructure in Brevard County, that is a great place to start.
So all of the different groups are actually presenting their budgets
Correct.
at this workshop.
Right.
And so is it over, or do you have more to do?
So there are going to be 3 budget workshops in total. This past week was the first one. The next one is on March 6th at 1 p.m. and it's open to the public, and it's also live streamed on YouTube. And there is public comment at the end. So if you have any input that you would like to give us, of course you can always email all of our offices. But this is another great option to come and tell the commission, you know, what you'd like to see in the budget or not like to see.
So they can sit through the budget presentation and then make statements about what they would like to see in or out of that?
Correct.
Okay. The next thing is that you had the firefighter negotiations, and how did that go?
So the firefighters went back to the table with the county, and they were there Friday from about 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And it looked pretty good that they were going to come and reach a deal. Wages were accepted on both sides. Some scheduling changes were accepted on both sides. And unfortunately, in the final minutes, there was some differences that couldn't get worked through.
So is all of that lost, or can you pick back up where the differences came in?
Hopefully we can pick it back up. Unfortunately, the commissioners are not the head negotiators. That rests within the county manager. And so that's up to his discretion. But I know that I'm going to be, you know, asking a lot of questions about how we get to a better place and get this finished for our people.
Do you think that if the commissioners actually were more engaged, that it will solve some of these issues?
I can really only speak for myself. Because of Sunshine, I really have no idea what the other commissioners are doing, you know, on their time. So for myself, I know that I regularly speak with our county manager about the firefighters and what's going on, and he knows exactly where I stand with all of that. And at the end of the day, March 3rd, they are going to arbitration, and so you know, we'll have a decision one way or the other. But if we could avoid that, that would be great, because it'll not only save taxpayer dollars, but it's always better if you could work out a deal together and not bring in outside forces, because yeah, so it will.
So the clock is ticking.
Right.
So there's no other meeting planned as of yet?
Not yet.
At this time? Okay. The other thing is the Speak Up Brevard workshop.
Yes.
And so we did have a 5-0 vote.
We did.
But how do you get a 5-0 vote from the county commission? I mean, it
A
actually
lot
was
of hard
that
work.
was a 5-0 vote on this.
Yes.
And so tell me about it.
So it took four times me bringing up this topic, and finally, I got there was a lot of citizen input. There was citizens from all 5 districts emailing the county commissioners.
So it's not just District 1?
Correct.
Okay.
There were citizens from all 5 districts who showed up to the commission meeting asking for this workshop to be passed. And so luckily the commission, they agreed. We made it through some of their concerns, with a time certain, it having a time certain to be done, so that it wasn't, a 5-hour long workshop. So it's going to be 3 hours long. We're going to have public comment. There's going to be citizens who have pre-signed up to give their presentations. The last I heard, there's probably going to be about 5 or 6 right now, but I'm hoping, by the time Tuesday rolls around, there'll be at least a few more. And
I'm kicking myself because I wanted to present the dais issue, and I could have come up with a nice little dais, maybe you're lower than this table. Anyway, just to illustrate my point, but I missed it. I'll catch it next year. But that's going to happen, right? People
Yes.
will be able to illustrate what their issue is on Speak Up Brevard, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so the next thing, just before we leave that, so what is the benefit of having this workshop, and why did you push for it so hard?
Sure. So the workshop was actually proposed in the original charter amendment, and while it didn't make its way into the charter, that's what the original intention was of the person that proposed this. And so I really felt like it was important to expand upon this program because right now the way it goes is the citizens write in their proposal, it goes to the proper staff, they make their recommendation to send to the commission. And so there's no real dialogue between the commission and the citizens. And that was truly what the intention was for the person that proposed this. And so I just felt like, let's expand our citizen engagement. Let's get the citizens involved in the rulemaking, give them some feeling of ownership.
Well, this
of their
cuts out the
community.
middleman, right?
Correct.
So now they're able to directly deal with the commissioners
Right.
themselves.
And it still goes, the staff still goes through it all and puts together their recommendations. But what this does is it allows the commission to directly speak with the citizens about their ideas.
Amen, amen, amen. I'm all for it. Now, one of my favorite topics is Governor DeSantis brought up a property tax proposal. Now, this has really caused a lot of stir, and I honestly agree with him because property taxes, to me, are some of the worst form of taxes that you can have, particularly as you get older. It just devastates older people. What do you think about this as a county commissioner? When you heard him say this, what were your thoughts?
Well, as a citizen, I love it because that honestly, I don't believe that property taxes are constitutional. I think that when you purchase your land and when you own your home, the government shouldn't be able to take it from you. So my only concern as a county commissioner is, unfortunately, this is how we fund our government. So we've got to make sure that if there is a transition to a new way of implementing taxes, that we have a smooth transition.
You would have to actually look at this from all the different sides and find out what are the other alternatives. I know back in Oklahoma, they passed an initiative that when you reach 65, your property taxes are lowered, and then there's a cap put on how much you have to pay. So there's a lot of different ways of looking at that, right?
Absolutely.
And for a lot of citizens, I mean, some people, they just cannot fathom there being no property taxes, but there's more ways to do this, right?
Right. And there's, there's sales tax, there's all sorts of different ways. It's just, like I said, that transition time, we really have to make sure that there's a concrete plan going from one way to the new way. And, property taxes, it's why so many of the elderly have had to do things like reverse mortgages, which are so predatory. You know, and this is, real estate is the way that we have established generational wealth.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
so this could be somebody's only investment. And then
Right.
if they can't afford their property taxes in their old age, they end up having to go into a reverse mortgage situation or sell their home. And they don't get to leave that to their children or to whoever, you know, they are going to be their beneficiaries.
Well, a good illustration is in Portland, Oregon. When we lived there, we knew a couple. They bought a home in the late 70s. The most they paid for a mortgage was $100. They ended up living into their late 80s, and their property taxes exceeded $400 a month.
Wow.
And the county, which was Multnomah County in Oregon, was generous enough to them to give them a reverse taxes so that they could continue to live in their home. But when they died, the county got their property. There's got to be something so horribly wrong with this.
Right.
That you can buy and purchase one, probably the largest possession that you'll have, and that you can lose it. So
Right.
there is that to consider, right? Do you think is that what DeSantis thinking about with this proposal?
I hope so. I hope, because, you know, like I said before, I don't believe that the government should be able to take your home.
There seems like that's unconstitutional,
Right.
That they can do that, and it's just interesting that they can. The next thing, Wusthof, I was going to say worst off, but Wusthof, Wusthof is closing down, and so there's a lot of problems that maybe people didn't know about there. That there were bats and rats. I mean, what is
From
this?
what we're hearing.
Lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my! What's going on there?
So I guess the building is in such disarray that Orlando Health is the organization that has purchased it, and they don't feel like the building is salvageable. And so I believe that there are plans for a new building to be built, not at that same site.
Now, has that building been condemned?
That's the
Or
rumor.
should it be condemned?
With
That's the
rats
question.
and bats, I would
Right.
think that it would, you know, I can't imagine it's very sanitary to have a hospital running in it, but.
And so they're planning on, according to what they said, they want to build a new hospital, but there's no timetable or place that has been said about where they're going to build it.
Right.
And so what about the people in that area? Of course, it doesn't cover your district, but it's...
This is going to be extremely detrimental to our community because when you call 911 and if you're between Port St. John and, you know, Suntree, East Vieira.
That's nowhere, man.
You're going to, you know, you would have been going to Rockledge Regional, and now you're
Cape Canaveral?
Cape Canaveral, Orlando, homes down in Melbourne. So it's going to be really bad for our community because the transportation times are going to increase
Yeah.
a lot, and sometimes a matter of minutes makes a difference in when you're trying to save somebody's life.
So is there a consideration? I mean, the hospital is looking at it and they're saying that obviously they're saying it's not for financial reasons. It's just, well, financial in a way in that they didn't think the building was salvageable.
Correct.
Right? And
Right.
so they were left with no choice.
Right.
And it's just...
So I'm hoping that there's enough of the building that's salvageable that maybe they can keep at least an emergency room
yeah.
open. That would be the most ideal situation. But this is ongoing, and I know that I'm going to be reaching out and seeing if there's anything we could do because we need hospital services for people.
And the last thing is this coming Tuesday at 9 a.m. There's an impact request for proposal in which there's going to be a proposal to do an impact fee study.
Correct.
Would that be correct?
For fire and EMS.
Okay.
So I had brought this up about a month ago to get approval for this, and so it's coming back on the agenda to get approval to go out for RFP, which is request for proposal. And honestly, I would really love to see this even expand to the comprehensive study for all of our impact fees. I'm hoping that the commission is going to be willing to reopen this, and because I personally believe we're leaving millions on the table.
Can the citizens participate, or is this just?
Oh yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
So they can just show up at 9 a.m. at the in Viera?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Katie.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that brings us to our kudos of the week. And Stell, you have a special kudos of the week.
Yes, kudos to council member Herman Cole of the city of Titusville for taking a leadership role in the past few weeks when it came to a very heartbreaking situation with an officer-involved shooting and the mother who was just desperately pleading to see her son. You stepped up when nobody else did, to call, to try to find out where her son was located and to ensure that that mother was reunited with her son and had the ability to bury him. But not only did you do that, Mr. Cole, you also took control over a city council meeting that could have went horribly wrong, and you stood up with courage and tried to speak to the community, and that's all that community members ever want, is to be heard. And lastly, you also showed up to the NAACP meeting, and you took the lead at that meeting when Mayor Connors did not show up, even though he told news that he was going to be there and set up the meeting. And so I say kudos to you, because that is what a community is looking for, is somebody that has the backbone to stand up and to stand alongside a community.
Amen, amen. And that brings us to the county commission. They get kudos this week because they voted 5-0 to approve the Speak Up Brevard workshop. Do you realize how amazing that is? Kudos to you, all of you on the Brevard County Commission, and it's just an amazing thing that you voted in favor of the people, and that's the way that it ought to be. So now you have the opportunity to talk to the people one-on-one and to talk about their views of how the county commission can implement plans within the county from their perspective. This is a wonderful thing. Kudos to all 5 members of the Brevard County Commission. And that brings us to my 2 cents. The case of Titusville Police Chief John Lau is drawing a line as to the establishment government and their sympathizers and those who are more concerned about what's right. We don't know what happened in the latest police shooting. We'll find out later when the results come out. But an examination of Lau's record doesn't need the FDLE report to draw a conclusion. His record pretty much speaks for itself. The establishment government and their sympathizers seemed unconcerned about Lau's record, as they support their buddy. Just this week, the North Brevard Republican Club, which shall be known from this point forward as the Good Old Boys Club, they had Lau as their featured speaker. This in spite of the record that Lau has. Well, let's look at that record. In 2024, Lau interfered with the mayoral election. No one questioned him about it. The city council didn't say anything to him about it. Scott Larese didn't say anything to him about it. He did a video and took it down. No apologies, nothing. Also, he's involved in weaponizing the police department to go after those who would speak out against the establishment. He went to Stale Bailey's house. He went to Mr. Jones's house, authorizing the sheriff's department to do so. No one says anything. He received, or the city of Titusville has a rating of 92% of officer-related deaths for cities the equivalent size of Titusville. His department is being cited by a judge for poor officer training, which led to the wrongful death of a Titusville resident at the hands of TPD. Violent crime statistics are higher than the national average in Titusville. A department history of officers who have run afoul of the law are clear, and we're going to present some of that to you. Also add to this a recent threat by Lau to come after brevardNEWS. Imagine that. A threat to come after people who are actually just reporting news? Retiring city manager Scott Larese is Lau's boss. Most of Lau's record has occurred under his watch. It's a good thing that he's retiring. In a healthy city, Lau would have been made to walk the plank a long time ago. But this is Titusville. It's the capital city of the Brevard Good Old Boys, where corruption is ignored just as long as your buddies are the right people. And that's my 2 cents.